Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome to the first 20th anniversary retrospective review of 2025. Today we're looking at the 2005 classic Resident Evil 4 for the Nintendo GameCube, a survival horror masterpiece that changed the series forever. Aye, about making it more about shooting blokes in the face than solving daft puzzles about chess pieces. 2005, the year I discovered Earl Grey with lavender. Did wonders for my constitution. Now, speaking of constitution, lad, I hope you're going to clean up that mess that you've left in the communal toilet. Back in 1999, Shinji Mikami announced a new Resident Evil sequel was being developed for the PlayStation 2. The process was long and challenging, with at least 4 versions of the game being scrapped. The first version, led by Hideki Kamiya, took a different direction from previous games. Around this time, Resident Evil 2 writer Nobu Sugimura worked on a story based on Kamiya's idea of a cool and stylish action game. The story followed Tony, an invincible man with superhuman skills and intelligence enhanced by biotechnology. Kamiya wanted game to feel more dynamic, so he replaced the fixed camera angles used in earlier games with a moving camera system to create realistic environments. The team spent 11 days in the UK and Spain taking photos of Gothic statues, bricks and stone pavements to use as textures. Despite their efforts, Mikami felt the cool style didn't fit the survival horror tone of Resident Evil. He eventually convinced the team to turn their work into a separate project. This led to the creation of a new franchise, Devil May Cry, which launched on the PlayStation 2 in August of 2001, don't you know? Do be sure to check out our retrospective review of Devil May Cry, link in description down below. Development on Resident Evil 4 started in late 2001. The first announcement came in November 2002 as one of 5 titles Capcom Production Studio 4 was making exclusively for the GameCube. Known as the Capcom 5, this version, often called the Fog version, was directed by Hiroshi Shibata and was about 40% complete at the time. In this version, Leon S. Kennedy were infiltrating Umbrella's European headquarters, which were designed like a castle. The game featured traditional monsters including zombies. Its story were written by Flagship, Sugimura's scenario company. It involved Leon becoming infected with progenitor virus, giving him hidden powers in his left hand. Unlike final version, Ashley wasn't part of the story. Instead, there were another girl, although her identity were never revealed. This version also experimented with first-person gameplay elements. Despite these ideas, the Fog version was ultimately scrapped as the team moved towards the version of Resident Evil 4 that we know today. Starting off strong, I see. It should come as no surprise that Resident Evil 4 appears in the book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die by Tony Mott, the absolutely fantastic editor of Edge magazine. Mr. B, you know what to do. But he won't. At E3 2003, Capcom revealed what is now known as the Hookman version of Resident Evil 4. It was later called the Phantom Biohazard 4 on a Japanese bonus DVD. During the trailer's introduction, Shinji Mikami promised that the development was going well and that this version would be scarier than ever. The story was set in a haunted building, with Leon battling strange enemies like possessed suits of armour, creepy dolls, and a ghostly man with a large hook. This version had surreal tone, featuring flashbacks and hallucinations, marked by a bluish tint and shaky camera effects. Now, some gameplay elements like over-the-shoulder camera, a laser sight for precise aiming, and QuickTime events eventually made it into the final version of the game. Other features like dialogue choices were later removed. 5 minutes of gameplay footage from this version were included in the Japanese pre-order bonus DVD released in January 2005. Whilst this never became full game, the Hookman version left its mark on the final design of Resident Evil 4. Now then, let's talk about the absolutely bonkers chainsaw controller, designed by Nubby Tech. This thing's shaped like a little yellow chainsaw, or red if you got PlayStation 2 version, complete with blood spatter effects, and even has a built-in sound chip that growls at you like the real deal. You almost expect it to start hacking away at your furniture. Definitely not one for a casual evening of Mario Kart then. Mr. B, you know... what's the point?
And speaking of chainsaws, right, Japanese version of the game took things to a whole new level with gruesome. Now, when Leon gets attacked by the old chainsaw wielding villager, it doesn't just chop his head off. Oh god, no, not like in the US version. It like peels off part of his face and his skull's exposed, leaving his dangling eye just there. It's oddly detailed. It's like someone took an anatomy class halfway through making game.
Lovely. Ooh, perfect tea time conversation.
Well, and if that weren't enough, right, they toned down some other details for Japan, like no exploding heads after headshots, and apparently Ashley's physics were less, shall we say, animated.
Let's keep it classy, lads. The hallucination version of Resident Evil 4 only had a rough story concept and abandoned the early scenario written by Nobu Sugimura from Flagship. In 2012, the writer from Resident Evil 3 Nemesis revealed that he was behind this version. His goal was to make the game scarier and drew inspiration from a scene in the film Lost Souls, where the main character ends up in an abandoned building with a killer. This idea evolved into Uckman version. The writer explained that he and Sugimura worked on refining story, which led to Leon infiltrating Spencer's castle in search of answers. Meanwhile, a young girl wakes up in a lab deep in castle and begins her escape, joined by a bioorganic weapon, BOW, dog. Our concept were ambitious but expensive, leading to its cancellation. The writer expressed regret and admitted that he felt ashamed that Shinji Mikami had to step in and scrap the project. Afterwards, the team briefly worked on a version featuring classic zombies again, but this too was scrapped for being too predictable. I mean, elements like the progenitor virus and Spencer's castle were later explored in Resident Evil 5 and its DLC, Lost in Nightmares. Capcom started development back in 1999 and famously scrapped it multiple times. One version became Devil May Cry and another got so weird that they called it the Hookman version. Finally, Shinji Mikami stepped in, slapped on a leather jacket and directed the version we know today. Hey, imagine working on a game for 5 years only to have it turned into an entirely different franchise. I bet someone cried into their pint over that one. Well, did you know, badgers are rarely indecisive. They'll burrow or they won't. No dithering about. What? Thought it might be relevant. Moving swiftly on. Shinji Mikami decided that it was time to change things up for the series. He took over as director and worked on what would be the final version of Resident Evil 4. In an interview, Mikami said that older gameplay styles felt repetitive, especially after playing Resident Evil 0. He wanted to create something fresh that would make players feel tense again. Producer Hiroyuki Kobayashi shared that the team was tired of doing the same thing, and some staff left to work on other projects. Kobayashi described the old format as a cookie-cutter mold that needed breaking. Not everyone were happy about changes though. Some staff struggled to stay motivated when focus shifted to action over the traditional style. Now Mikami addressed their concerns, explaining his vision, and he wrote a new story, stepping away from the usual Umbrella Corporation plotline. He wrote it in just 3 weeks, inspired by the over-the-shoulder camera system in Onimusha 3. He introduced new enemy types like the Ganado to replace the zombie. Characters were also updated. Leon Kennedy were designed to look tougher, whilst enemies like the Regenerators were created to keep the horror element alive. These creatures, slow-moving, heavy-breathing monsters, require strategy to defeat, using an infrared scope to target hidden Plaga parasites on their bodies. Voice acting was recorded over several months, with Capcom carefully matching characters' facial expressions to the actors' voices. Caroline Lawrence, who voiced Ashley Graham, described her character as vulnerable, always needing Leon's help. Leon, on the other hand, was seen as more brawn than brain. The game was initially a GameCube exclusive, don't you know, but in October of 2004, Capcom announced that it would also release on the PlayStation 2, to reach a wider audience. Now, the PlayStation 2 version added new content, including a sub-game featuring Ada Wong. Later, Ubisoft brought the game to PC in 2006, and a Wii version followed in 2007, including all the PlayStation 2 extras and additional features like a trailer for Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. Now, according to publishers Capcom, the PlayStation 2 version of Resident Evil 4 has sold 2.3 million copies worldwide since its initial release, with another 2 million sold of the Wii edition, and another 1.3 million sold of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 version. That's the September 2018. So that's a total of 5.6 million copies sold of all versions at game. Resident Evil 4 puts players in control of Leon S. Kennedy from a third-person perspective, breaking away from earlier games in the series. This one focuses more on action and combat, with less emphasis on traditional survival horror. The camera sits behind Leon, switching to an over-the-shoulder view when aiming weapons. For sniper rifle, the view switches to first person. Instead of a crosshair, firearms use a laser sight for aiming. Players have more control over where they shoot compared to earlier games. For example, shooting an enemy's feet can make them trip up, or aiming at their arms can cause them to drop weapons. You can even shoot throwing axes and scythes out of the air. Now, the game introduced context-sensitive actions, letting players interact with environments based on situation. You can kick down ladders, jump through windows, dodge attacks, or perform finishing moves on weakened enemies. Quick time events also play a big role. These require players to press specific buttons shown on screen to avoid hazards, like falling boulders, or to survive grappling with enemies. Many boss fights include these moments, adding intensity and danger with instant kill attacks to avoid. The main enemies are the Las Gardos, violent villagers infected with a parasite. Unlike classic zombies, these enemies are smarter and more dangerous. They can dodge attacks, use weapons like chainsaws, and work together to corner Leon. Leaders can mutate into grotesque monsters for major battles. Other enemies include the regenerative regenerators, the massive El Gigante, and the massive sea creature Del Lagos. Now the inventory system. Now that uses a grid-based attaché case system where each item takes up a specific amount of space. The case can be upgraded to hold more items as the game progresses, but weapons, ammo and healing items all go in the case, whilst key items and treasures are kept in a separate menu. Throughout the game, a merchant appears to sell weapons, upgrades and healing sprays, and to buy treasures that Leon has collected. Each weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses, giving players plenty of options. Later versions of the game, starting with the PlayStation 2 release, add new content. Separate Ways, a side story following Ada Wong's role in the events and her connection to Albert Wesker. Ada's report explores her relationship to Wesker in more detail. Other unlockables include the Mercenaries minigame, Assignment Ada, new costumes, extra weapons, and a cutscene viewer. Gone were the fixed camera angles and the clunky tank controls. Instead, we got dynamic, over-the-shoulder cameras and fast-paced action. It was a risky move, but it worked. Worked? My god, it was so good that every game since has nicked it, even ones that had no business doing so. I'm looking at you, Gears of War. What's all this about Leon shooting villagers? Couldn't he have just offered them a nice brew? These villagers were infected with a parasite called Las Plagas. You can't charm your way out of that. Nonsense. A strong builder's brew can cure anything.
In 2004, Leon S. Kennedy, a U.S. government agent, is sent to rescue Ashley Graham, the president's daughter, who has been kidnapped by a cult called Los Illuminados. He arrives at a rural Spanish village where the locals have been infected by a mind-controlling parasite, Las Plagas. Leon is captured and injected with the parasite but escapes with the help of Luis Serra, a former Los Illuminados researcher. Leon rescues Ashley from a church, only to learn that the cult plans to use her to infect the U.S. president, setting the stage for global control. The two flee to a castle owned by Ramon Salazar, a cult leader. They face numerous attacks, and Luis is killed by the cult leader, Osmond Sadler, after delivering pills to slow their infection. Leon fights through the castle, eventually killing Salazar, while receiving occasional help from Ada Wong, a mysterious figure from his past. Leon continues his mission on a nearby island where he discovers his former comrade Jack Krauser was involved in Ashley's kidnapping to steal a Plagas sample. After defeating Krauser, Leon rescues Ashley and removes the parasite from their bodies. With Ada's help, Leon defeats Sadler, but she takes the sample and leaves. Leon and Ashley escape as the island explodes.
Before you head off to fight your own Ganados, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It's quicker than dodging a boulder and a lot less dangerous. And whilst you're at it, share this video with your chums, especially the ones who insist the GameCube was the best console ever. They'll thank you later. Or share it with someone who's never even heard of Resident Evil 4. I'm looking at you, Mr. B. Educate them. It's your duty.
like making a proper brew.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got more retro reviews, nostalgic fun and Badger facts coming your way.
Badgers, now there's an underrated topic. But I digress. Hit the old subscribe button or your Pat here might start reciting the merchant's lines continuously until our ears fall off. Yeah, what you buying? How about the subscription button? What are you selling? I'll buy that for a high price. Welcome, stranger.
Leon battles his way through hordes of parasitic infected cultists to rescue Ashley, who... well, she's not the most helpful.
Helpful? She's like carrying a wet paper bag uphill. Don't even get me started on her shouting Leon every 5 seconds.
You know, I rather like that Ada Wong. Stylish, mysterious. A woman who knows where the teacups are kept. Ada is iconic, but let's not forget the real star, the merchant.
What are you buying? Oh, I've got the best bloke in the entire game. Did you know he runs a market outside the Dog and Duck of a weekend? His pears aren't up to much, but he does a cracking trade in hand grenades.
Yeah, speaking of markets, did you know that tea is the second most traded commodity in the world? Yeah, just after oil, you know.
And Leon could have done with both. You know, tea for Ashley and oil for them rusty typewriters.
As Leon S. Kennedy, we have Paul Mercer, an American actor who is widely recognised for his role as Leon in Resident Evil 4. Mercer trained at the Royal Shakespeare Company and the Guildhall School of Music and Drama. He began his acting journey in theatres before transitioning to voice work. He also voiced Spectre in the SOCOM US Navy SEAL series.
Mercer also voiced Mr. What are you buying himself, the merchant, but this is uncredited.
Caroline Lawrence, known for her voice roles in Nickelodeon shows like Sandy Cheeks in SpongeBob SquarePants and Cindy Vortex in Jimmy Neutron, voices Ashley Graham, the President's daughter. In addition to acting, Lawrence is a licensed real estate agent in Los Angeles. Reno Romano, a Canadian actor, lent his voice to Luis Serra. Romano is known for voicing Batman in the Batman series, Spider-Man in various projects, and as the narrator of Curious George. His extensive career also includes roles in Extreme Ghostbusters and Sailor Moon. Sally Saffioti voiced Ingrid Hunnigan and appears in multiple Resident Evil films and games. Her other notable roles include Claudine Wolfe in Monster High and characters in Prince of Persia and World of Warcraft Legion. Sally Hill, a Canadian actress, is known for her portrayal of Ada Wong in Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil The Dark Side Chronicles. Cahill has frequently reprised the role, becoming closely associated with the character. Renee Mujica voiced Ramon Salazar, one of the game's antagonists. Mujica is a versatile voice actor with a strong presence in video games. Jim Ward, an American actor, played Jack Krauser. Ward is best known as Captain Quark in the Ratchet & Clank series. He's won a Daytime Emmy, but is now retired due to health issues. Michael Goff provided the voice for cult leader Osmond Salazar. Goff has voiced iconic roles including Deckard Cain in Diablo and Captain Gordon in Batman Arkham Origins. And finally, Richard Warg, a Canadian actor, voiced Albert Wesker in Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 4. Warg's distinct portrayal of Wesker influenced subsequent actors who took on the role and remains a fan favourite. Voice acting in Resident Evil 4 is a mixed bag. I mean, Leon's deadpan delivery definitely works, but the rest...
Luis sounds like he's auditioning for a Spanish soap opera.
I mean, at least they tried. I mean, back in my day, games didn't have voices at all. You know, just beeps and bloops. True, but would you trade the merchant's lines for beeps and bloops? Not a chance, stranger. Now, the soundtrack keeps tension high with eerie ambience and pulse-pounding combat tracks.
And you know, let's not forget the save room music. Oh God, like a warm hug before you head back into chaos.
Like the kettle boiling, comforting,
but ominous at the same time.
The original Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube came with 2 collector's editions. One pre-order version included the game, a prologue art book and a t-shirt, but GameStop offered a limited edition in a tin box with an art book, a cell of Leon and a soundtrack CD. In Australia, an exclusive edition added a bonus disc featuring interviews and behind the scenes footage. Released on October 25th, 2005, the PlayStation 2 version added Separate Ways, a new Ada Wong scenario developed by the porting team. It came in a standard and collector's bundle. Collector's version included a Leon figurine, soundtrack, Biohazard, Sound Chronicles Best Track box, and an art book. Later Platinum Edition included a steelbook case and cell art of Ada and a documentary DVD. The PC version came out in 2007. It included all the PlayStation 2 bonus features, like Separate Ways, and a laser cannon weapon. It also added extra costumes for Leon and Ashley, and an easy mode and widescreen support were added. It fixed lighting and shadow issues as well, don't you know? The Wii version also released in 2007. This version added motion controls using the Wii Remote and Nunchaku for aiming and context-sensitive actions. It also includes all prior bonus content and a trailer for Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. The Wii version became available digitally for the Wii U in 2015. A mobile version was released in Japan in 2008. It divided the story into sections. It introduced a challenging mercenaries mode and were later adapted for Zeebo and iOS. In 2009, Capcom released an updated iPad edition with HD graphics. In 2011, high-definition versions for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were released as part of the Revival Selection series. It featured all bonus content. In 2014, Capcom released the Ultimate HD edition for Windows with improved visuals and additional enhancements. In 2016, Resident Evil 4 was re-released for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
In 2019, the game was released on the Nintendo Switch alongside Resident Evil and Resident Evil 0. In 2021, a VR version was released for Oculus Quest 2, with changes to gameplay and dialogue to suit modern audiences and VR mechanics. This version used Unreal Engine 4 and included updated textures.
Resident Evil 4 received overwhelming praise, with the GameCube and PlayStation 2 versions scoring 96 out of 100 on Metacritic. These versions topped Metacritic's Best Video Games of 2005 list and are widely regarded as some of the best games ever made. The gameplay, characters and story are all highly praised. GameSpot liked the voice acting, but found some of the dialogue silly. Yahoo Games and GameSpot highlighted the detailed character designs, and IGN praised the fight choreography and cinematic visuals, specifically complimenting Paul Mercer's performance as Leon, calling it believable and well produced. Publications like IGN and Nintendo Power also highlighted the variety of weapons and innovative gameplay mechanics. The Wii edition released later, but it also well received. Its new motion controls were considered fresh, with British magazine Endgamer giving it 96 and Famitsu awarding it 38 out of 40. However, some reviewers noted that it did not have the same groundbreaking impact as the original GameCube version. The official Nintendo magazine scored it slightly lower, saying it lacked the wow factor of the first release. IGN called it best version, but said it didn't push the Wii's capabilities. As the PC port had mixed reviews though, the original version was criticised for poor mouse and keyboard support, low quality cutscenes and graphical issues, although the gameplay and the environments were still praised. The Ultimate HD edition was described as a basic update with minor improvements. Game Revolution called the Wii edition the true Ultimate Edition due to its motion controls and extras. Over time their game's reputation has remained strong, with the PlayStation 3 version earned 9.0 from Destructoid, and Edge later gave it a perfect 10. Despite opinions on the ports and updates, Resident Evil 4 continues to be celebrated as a landmark in video game history. Both critics and players love Resident Evil 4. Perfect scores, Game of the Year awards, and it sold millions.
Even the GameCube got a bit of love for once. Poor little purple box, or silver box, or orange box, or white box.
And tell me, how long does it take to complete this supposed masterpiece? Well, if you stick to the main story, you're looking at about 15-16 hours, but if you're the type that wants to explore absolutely everything and aim for a 100% completion, I think you're looking at a good 30-31 hours. Blimey, that's a lot of tea breaks. Get the kettle on standby, lads. Resident Evil 4 wasn't just a game, it was the turning point for the series and the blueprint for modern action games.
It's a cracker, but let's not forget, everything that Leon does, he does with a haircut that's barely moved since 1998.
And Ada, a lady who drink Earl Grey without sugar. Ada Wong. Thanks for joining us here at the Orbital Broadcast Bunker. Let us know your favourite Resident Evil 4 moment in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you've had fun and subscribe for more retro goodness.
Or Keith is going to start comparing badges to Last Plagueis.
They're both highly adaptable, I'll have you know. Before we go, I'll leave you with this. If swimming is such good exercise, why are whales so fat? Cheerio, see you soon.